What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to video number 10 in my series on making JavaScript particle animations. In today's video, I actually want to cover two functions because they're both pretty short and they're not in any particular order. They're just both short functions, so I figured that I'd do two of them in this video instead of just one. So the first function we're going to be doing in this video is actually the add particles function. And so I have it pasted into our code right now, and as you can see, it's pretty short because pretty much just what we're doing is running through a for loop and just spawning particles for all the emitters that are currently active. So the first thing we want to do is create our variable I, because that's just our base loop variable. The next piece is just starting our for loop that we have going here. So what we're going to be doing is just running through our data.emitters length, and then do I++, and then the if statement inside of this for loop is actually checking to make sure that we haven't already generated enough particles for the emitter. So like we said, 25 is the max, but however many particles that our emitter is supposed to spawn, we're just going to make sure that it hasn't already reached that limit. So we're going to type data.emitters at the index, because we're running through the for loop I, and we're just going to check the particle count is less than data.emitters at the index .kill after particle, and we're just going to go ahead and make sure that that is true before we actually do data.emitters at that index I spawn particles, which we call that function on the actual emitter itself. And that's this function that we wrote here. So each emitter handles the spawning of its own particles, and what this add particles is doing is just kind of managing all those emitters. And that takes care of the add particles, which is, it's super simple. It's just running through a for loop and spawning those particles for each emitter. So we're just going to delete that. And then the next function, the second and last function we're covering in this video, is going to be the loop function, which is all the way at the bottom before the return. And in this, what we're going to do is just add all of the functions that we're calling in this module that need to call every frame. So this loop will be externalized and then put inside of our request animation frame on our game loop, so that we can then call all these functions from this loop function. So the first thing we want to do is just check to make sure that we're looping. And I haven't fully explained what that is doing yet, but it's more for the canvas and the drawing to make sure that we're not drawing the canvas when there aren't any emitters currently on the screen, because there's just no reason for it. So it's taking up extra CPU. So then inside of this if statement now, we're just going, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to call that add particles that we just wrote, because we want it to call the add particles every frame to make sure that we're always spawning the particles that we need to spawn. The second one is to kill emitters, and we haven't written that function yet, but kill emitters is essentially going to get rid of emitters that don't spawn any more particles. And then the next function we're going to write is actually the move particles function, which we haven't written that either yet, but we will be calling that obviously every frame so that we can increment our particles and move them across the screen to their destinations. Then the next line is actually just to clear the canvas so that when we redraw the particles, they're not overlapping, because if you don't clear the canvas, then the particle won't erase the previous frame and you'll just see all the frames together. So to do that, we just will call data.ctx, accessing our data CTX that we created in the beginning, and we'll just do that, and then we'll clear rect, which is just to clear the rectangle of the screen basically. And so in this case we'll say 0 0 as in the x and y of where the rectangle starts, and then the width and the height of it. So we'll just do the data.canvas.width and the data.canvas.height. And so that'll give us the full screen, and we'll clear all that. And then the last piece of this loop is just to add the draw particles. So now we've cleared the canvas, and now we're ready to redraw all those particles on the screen. Alright guys, that'll wrap up video number 10. Make sure to comment below on what you want to see in my next series for sure, and any suggestions you may have about these series, what you'd like to see more of or less of, let me know. Make sure to subscribe and like the video, and I will see you guys in number 11. Peace.